Thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm going to talk about some of the high tunnel projects. Most of the projects, as you know, are not complete because of COVID, and then we had wind tearing into our high tunnels, and it kind of set us back a little bit. So just to begin, I would like to make a little announcement. Be on the lookout and register for Profiting from a Few Acres. We will be having our virtual conference on the 10th to 11th of March. It will be 2 days. So be on the lookout and register. Another one in connection with high tunnels, the EQIP program is still financing high tunnel systems. So if you are interested, if you are a farmer who's interested in putting up a high tunnel, they can always, help with 80% of your of the money that you need to put up one. So please contact your local USDA service, and you'll be able to, get somewhere. So pest management in high tunnels. When we had our workshops, like in some 4 or 5 years ago, one of the things that the high tunnel producers talked about a little bit was pests in the high tunnels. And as they've continued using their high tunnels, they've realized that it's really a big problem. Because when you talk about high tunnels, you're like, voila, you're talking about something whereby the pests are gonna be fewer than in the field. But as we realize that high tunnels is actually a mixed bag of goodies. If you look at the enclosures, they actually present an environmental condition that is attractive to pests. Remember, like if you overwintered this year, I mean, yeah, this is spring and you still had some plants in your high tunnels, they probably had some pests in them, and they're gonna overwinter, and they're gonna have an early start with your crops. And at the same time, high tunnels being what they are, they lend themselves to very good IPM practices that can be, used. So some of the aspects are that, there's passive ventilation. So maybe, not as many pests get in, but then not as many pests go out. And then there is no rain inside the high tunnel, which is normally good for certain diseases, but at the same time, rain outside washes off some, some pests from the leaves in the outside crops. So, that's a negative right there. And then high tunnels are normally limited in size. Farmers or people who use them tend to plant a lot of crops in them. So there's a lot of diversity of plants, and this could be good for biologicals. It could also be bad for, the explosion of pests, if any, and of course, even the temperatures inside the high tunnel. And then, of course, because we normally have early start or early crop production, then that means that, you can either say, oh, it's early in the season, you don't have as much pests, but at the same time, you could be saying that, oh, you have, an early start of, getting pests going because you overwintered pests in the high tunnel. So in one of our workshops that was carried out in May 2019, we asked growers who were about 49, and we asked them, do we really need high tunnels in Delaware? And 88% of them said we do. And I have been working with high tunnel farmers for some time now, and I would like to say that high tunnels are still popping up in Delaware despite some of the challenges that farmers have. So it's still, it is still something that farmers would like to play around with. So high tunnels are still popular. So for my presentation today, I'm just going to go over some of the practices of pest management in high tunnels. Now, these have either been trials that have been done at DSU, or just trials that have been done in other places, other universities in the US, and even other farmer farms. I mean, people who are really interested in showing that they can take care of pests in the high tunnels in one way or the other. So if you are a grower and you have some practice that has helped you reduce pests, please be able to share with us. So some of these are recommended integrated pest management measures. So that means that they're economically feasible, they're feasible, they're environmentally friendly, and then, you know, you kind of are socially responsible when you use them. So one of the things that we note when we are talking about integrated pest management is insect monitoring, very important. Because for the times that we've been working with pest identification in high tunnels, we've realized that if a grower doesn't know what pest they're dealing with, then it's very hard for them to even target it. It's very hard for them to even go to, you know, like a pesticide store and get what they really want. So it's important that you get to monitor some of these pests and then detect them early enough through good scouting, and then you get rid of them. So sometimes we use yellow sticky cards. You can use blue sticky cards like for thrips. You can use pheromone traps, and all that can, you know, tell you what you're dealing with in a high tunnel. So the goodness with the high tunnel is that it's an enclosure. So, you know, you probably just get in and, you know, scout whenever you can. And because the size is also small enough, it's not like an open field. So you can actually even know what the hotspots, where the hotspots are, and that will help you in, you know, spraying. So one of the things that the high tunnel growers have been playing around with, or, you know, especially the high tunnels that I visited in Missouri last year, are insect screens. And this is because they had a whole lot of problem with cucumber beetles. And they thought, oh, okay, what if we use insect screens so that, you know, we can keep some of the insects away. So there are several studies that have examined the efficacy of placing insect exclusion screens on the high tunnels. And because the cucumber beetles really can ravage a crop, and then they also spread bacterial wilt. So, and, you know, for the cucumber, for the fresh market, we really need a good crop. So this study recommended some size of netting that could be used. And when you looking for such a netting, people tend to go for the smaller one. The smaller screen one is best, although the temperatures in the high tunnels get heightened a little bit, but they try to, they help keep the cucumbers away, the cucumber beetles away. Studies show that up to 80% of the cucumber beetles are kept out by the screen. So cucumber beetles, being a very serious pest of beans and most vine crops, is one in which we can use the screens. You can also use traps, but not for all of them. We have two kinds of cucumber beetles. The Acalima cucumber beetle, the one that is not attracted to lure, so you can't use any pheromones or any, traps to trap it. Is the Acalima. It's the striped cucumber beetle. It ravages the crop as well, and these beetles have got a tendency to congregate together. And for people who have high tunnels and have had this on their cucumber or any cucurbits, they can really be a pain. They can really be a pain. So the other cucumber beetle is the Diabrotica, and these ones have got spots on them. And they also ravage the crops quite a bit. And the goodness is that you can lure them with a trap. You can use traps to lure them. So the beauty of using the screens is that the cucumbers and eggplants can handle additional heat. Remember, when you use the small screen, the screens that have got very small holes, it's like adding some kind of coverage, another layer of coverage on top of the high tunnel. So this again increases the temperature. So you cannot use the screens when you're growing tomatoes or peppers because they cannot just handle that increased ventilation that comes with the the use of that screen. So you might be able to only use the netting when it comes to some crops. So that means that you cannot just, I mean, if you're growing various crops and you just want to protect your cucumber, then you use that netting, but you cannot, depend on it for other crops. So that's a challenge. Now, another thing about the cucumber beetle, which is very important, and a lot of growers on the high tunnel network have been talking about it, and it's really been proven in a trial at Missouri Lincoln University. The amaranth can be used as a trap crop for cucumber beetles. When you have a row of cucumbers in your high tunnel, you can have some 3 or 4, amaranth plants. The beetles love the amaranth. They'll never touch your cucumber when the amaranth is right there. Now, this is a trial that has come up, and if you Google it, you probably get a paper coming up soon about it. And I think it's a good thing that somebody can try. So in one of our workshops, we also, gauged what the growers thought about biocontrols in high tunnels, especially high tunnels being, passively covered. So is biocontrol a viable aspect of controlling pests in the high tunnel? And 92% of our growers thought, yeah, because it's kind of enclosed. You probably, you're kind of dealing with a greenhouse situation whereby you can have insects trapped inside, and they could, be hovering around and rarely, getting out of it. So biocontrol in the high tunnels, it's something that has been explored by so many universities and extension agents. And one of the people who talked in one of our workshops in from New York really delved into it, and this actually made us also try biocontrols in our high tunnels, and we've been carrying out trials on it for the last 3 years now. So one of the things that we note is that timing of the release of these biocontrols is key. And you always have to have a scouting program in place, because you can only release what is gonna eat the right, you can only release a predator that's gonna eat the right pest. The temperatures are very crucial. There are times when you order for a biocontrol agent all the way from IPM labs. We normally use the New York IPM labs, and then you get your predator in good time, but then because maybe you reached the farm and you didn't put them out there at the right time, they're probably dead. And then, or sometimes you put them out there, and then the high tunnel temperatures rise to really high temperatures, and then they get cooked off. Or sometimes the temperatures overnight are so cold, and then you lose some. So it's very important that you make sure that the temperature is right for whatever you're putting out there. And you can also use bunker plants, and these will help you retain the predators, because the bunker plants are just plants that the predators will like to hang around. So if they're not eating, if they're not eating the pests that they're supposed to be ravaging on, then they probably will be, giving birth to other predators in the bunker plants. Some water source is very important. We had a trial down at Seaford where we used ladybugs to take care of aphids. And one of the things that happened is that when it was really dry in the high tunnel, all the ladybugs seemed to have, flown off to some cool corner, and then they were not doing the job because they were looking for water to drink. So it's always good to have some water source when you're dealing with ladybugs, because otherwise they'll be running off or going off the high tunnel instead of doing what they're supposed to do. So the demonstration trials at the DSU tunnels explored some use of the biologicals, and I'm gonna just go through some of the work that we did. Now we zeroed in on aphids. And for aphids, we released the Aphidias colemani and also the ladybugs. And just as I said, our data for this year was kind of done halfway because in the middle of stuff, we lost the roof of one of the high tunnels that we were working with. So we still have to work with the statistician to see what we do with the data. So, but one of the things we realized is that we got a lot of mummified aphids on the leaves of tomatoes. And that showed us that at least the Aphidias colemani was working to ravage the aphids. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful about is to scout and just put out these predators at the right time. If you wait until there's an explosion of aphids, which the aphids give birth to young ones alive, and within 2 weeks of spotting a number of aphids somewhere, there'll be millions of them. So you have to just do that at the right time. Now, whiteflies are also a problem in the high tunnels, just like they are in the in greenhouses. So the whiteflies, as you know, they normally secrete honeydew. They really mess up the plant. Suck off the sap of the leaves, and you don't get a good kind of product at the end of the season if your plants are ravaged with whiteflies. So for whiteflies, we actually had 2 parasitic wasps, the Encasia whitefly predator and also the Eretmoceras. And these work best at temperatures about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So for times when the temperatures in the high tunnels got really high, we lost a lot more predators. But anyway, when you have some shade in some shading plants in the high tunnel, they hide under there, and you kind of keep some population going. Another target was the thrips, and thrips are also a vector of diseases. So for thrips, we released the Ambelcilius, the Nucellus cucumeris. Now, these ones are also the same ones. They can also work on whiteflies. And one of the things that was really noted is that the marigolds are a trap plant for the biocontrol for thrips. So if you have problems with thrips and tomatoes, and you have like a few marigolds plants in between, they're gonna be helpful because they're gonna harbor the thrip, the predator that controls the thrip, and then you can always dispose of the plant. Now, some of the spray formulations also work. Some of the ones that we've mentioned here are Mycotrol or Spinosine, and it's not that we are endorsing them. It's just like we've tried some of them and they've worked for us. Now, spider mites. We had a problem of spider mites on strawberry, and no traps or lures are available to monitor the mites. I mean, you cannot use like sticky cards to monitor the mites. They don't do that amicably. So we had the Neoculus californicus for the control of spider mites. And these ones, they really feed on the larvae and the names of the spider mite. And they do that voraciously, especially if the temperatures are right, and the temperatures are just around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And normally the spider mites web a lot, so you have to release these predators before the predatory mites before you have a lot of webbing, because the webbing normally kind of deters the movement of the predator. So when it comes to biologicals, one of the things we note is that you have to know your friends. You have to know all the beneficials that will help you in the high tunnel. Now, with extension in Delaware, we normally have some of the courses or some of the workshops offered by Dr. Brian Kunkel, and when you attend them, you always learn, to identify these, and you always learn that. So I encourage you guys to always, tune in when you have such workshops. Now, the habitat plants also help a lot. So we say that, oh, you normally have to weed your high tunnels, but some of the plants, if we have them in the high tunnel, they kind of help us habitat. They form a habitat for the predators, and we need to keep them. We need to keep some of them, like dill, like the bush bean, and when our students were scouting, you realize that, when they look under the underside leaves of these plants, they always find some of those predators, some of those beneficial insects hiding under them. So when it comes to high tunnel pest control, it's always good to explore these cultural control methods, which of course are very safe. Some of them we've talked about, like trap cropping, like the biologicals, and we have to use some sanitation, early planting. Of course, we normally start early in the high tunnels, but early planting and harvesting sometimes helps a lot before we get that big explosion of insects, because maybe the crops outside are having the insect problem too. So some of the sanitation procedures that we can use is solarization. This is soil solarization that was being done at a high tunnel in the University of Delaware. And soil solarization is very, very helpful. As you can see, you use some transparent polyethylene cover to trap the solar energy. And this will kill fungi, bacteria, nematodes, and insect, and even mite pests. It also kills some weed seeds in the soil. Remember, sanitation is also about keeping the weed population low. So this is something that, if you are a grower and you're not using your high tunnel for some time, you could do this. You could solarize the soil, and it would help you quite a bit. It's a non-chemical and it's environmentally friendly, and we encourage some of it to be done. So vertical plantings are, we encourage a lot of vertical plantings in the high tunnel, because one thing, it kind of allows the air circulation a little bit, and proper trellising is always important. So if you're growing ground crops, you could alternate them with some of the vertical plantings, just to help you have adequate air circulation in the high tunnel. And for synthetic insecticides, spot treatment is often encouraged, because it will save you money, and that is why scouting is very important. The high tunnel is normally small enough that you can identify some of the hotspots for the pests, and then spray those hotspots, or even spray the trap crop that you have at a certain place, instead of spraying the whole high tunnel. So the high temperatures in the high tunnels normally are a challenge to the choice of pesticides that you make. Just like greenhouses, which are enclosures, it's very tricky that you cannot spray some of the pesticides that is sprayed outside in an enclosure. It's not good for your health. It's also not good for the health of the crop. So we can also have some structural damage due to some drift, because the high tunnel is made of plastic and metal parts. So it's very important that when you're choosing pesticides for high tunnel production, they have to be the soft ones. So we need chemicals which are low in acute toxicity, and which have low residual activity. And we have to avoid killing the pollinators and beneficial insects. So, if we have to spray anything, it has to be really soft, and we have to be strategic in spraying. For example, if you are using the Encasia formosa to to predate on your white flies, remember the white flies normally get out that sticky substance on the leaves, and then if you wait until the population of the white flies is too much, then it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out well. So when you're spraying, spray when the pest populations are really low, so that you don't want the predators to get stuck on the sticky substance instead of doing what they have to do. So some of the pesticides that are compatible with biological control agents, and David Owens also mentioned some of these, are the horticultural oils, insecticidal soaps, PP, and neem. Now, most people say, oh, these don't work, we just want solutions that, you can do this and get the solution right away. But unfortunately, as much as we want to kill the pests, we have to be wary of what the pesticides are doing to the environment. So, for high tunnels, we still encourage the use of these soft insecticide or pesticides. Well, I want to thank you, and if you have any questions, please put them on the chat.